How much is on that one?
It's betting, Jim, but not as we know it.
There is a problem with Lucky 15s. Someone sent me in a bet history. They're losing money hand over fist. I went to check 1 year's worth of data in the Bookie bashing database. £15,000 down to £1 Lucky 15 stakes. What is going on? How can we explain this? Will we ever make money again? My name is Tom Brownlee from bookiebashing.net. In these videos, we do deep dives into the mathematics, the edges, and the angles of profitable betting. And this week, let's take a look at Lucky 15s on horse racing. So everybody seems to be doing Lucky 15s on horses these days. Of course, you've got recreational bettors that love them, but even profitable bettors, everyone seems to be doing them now. They're being pushed out as the new next thing for making money. And I got contacted by someone who sent in a bet history where they'd lost money. They asked me their opinion. Now, we've had a horse racing tracker for a number of years at Bookie Bashing. With success comes copycats. It got cloned once and then cloned by another community and then cloned by a third community. A little bit like that film The Fly with Jeff Goldblum, who teleports not once but twice and then 3 times, and every time he teleports it's a slightly more mutated version of the original. Look, Lucky 15s can be attractive propositions for a number of reasons that we will come into in step 2 of this video. But first of all, what are they? Well, Lucky 15 is a system bet containing 4 different horses in 4 different races. If it was 5, it would be a Lucky 31, 6, a Lucky 63, and so on. Well, why 15? If you take 4 horses, you have 4 singles, 6 doubles, 4 trebles, and 1 fourfold. Similarly, with 5 horses, there are 31 permutations, with 6, 63, and so on, and so on. A £1 each way Lucky 15 is those 15 bets, both to win and to place, so 30 bets overall. And they're very popular with profitable bettors and advantage players. People have been doing them for years to get an edge over the bookmaker. So what's going on here in this graph? This graph represents a database of Bookie bashing positive EV horses, all taken at 12 o'clock every day for a year between the 1st of June 2024 to the 1st of June 2025 at Betfred. And we have looked every day at the best EV horse per day, only taking 1 per race. You can't have more than 1 horse from the same race in a Lucky 15. And we put them into Lucky 15s at £1 stakes, and we're £15,000 down. This seems like a problem when the sample size is over 1 year of horses at Betfred. Let's just take a step back and look at why profitable bettors place Lucky 15s on horse racing in the first place. Well, the first is logistics, the second reason is staying under the radar, and the third is compounding value. Let's look at reason number 1, logistics. You may have 12 or 16 horses that you want to get on, and there's nothing wrong with placing singles on those horses. But imagine you go to a shop, you're placing 16 different bet slips with 16 horses down on the counter. Now, what's easier, doing that or placing 4 Lucky 15s? I'll just get the prices for those, but I've got a couple here. Don't think there's a lot on them.
Yeah, I'll do it for you.
You do it for me? I thought you were busy. You looked busy.
I'm not busy, mate.
You sure?
Even if I was busy, I'd still do it.
Oh, well, that's very good. I got 12 horses there to go through,
No
if that's
problem.
okay. Logistically, it's just easier to place those 4 Lucky 15s. And that does actually lead us into the second reason, staying under the radar. Again, you got 16 bet slips with 16 singles on that counter. You may pop your head over the parapet. I mean, it is easier in shops to stay under the radar than it is online. You tend to get restricted very quickly online. And again, placing Lucky 15s is better for account longevity, even on online accounts, than placing singles. We know this because there was a large scale review done of sharp customers at a bookmaker, and the number 1 indication of a sharp customer was someone that placed single bets. because a lot of them were involved with arbitrage and hedging their bets, it's a lot easier to do on singles than it is on multiples. So it really is a way of staying under the radar. And thirdly, and probably most importantly when it comes to the mathematics of profitable betting, we compound the value. When you take one positive expectation bet and multiply it in a multiple, in a double with a second positive expectation bet, the product is more than the sum of the individual parts. As Joseph Buchdahl said in his book Monte Carlo or Bust, we turn water into wine. So there are tangible reasons around logistics, around staying under the radar, and around compounding value why it's a good idea to place Lucky 15s on horse racing. You just have to know that those horses that you're betting on are positive expectation in the first place. If the singles are good, the Lucky 15s should be good as well. Now, how do you know if the singles are good? Well, you might have proper info. Certainly there are some tipsters out there that wear jackets that say that they've got proper info. And what does that mean? Apparently it means they've got inside information from stable boys, from trainers, that particular horses are performing well or badly, or have woken up with the flu, or a leg's fallen off, or yada yada yada. I would ignore that noise. That's not a tangible, reliable method from profiting from horse racing. Now, you could have your method, they could have their method, I have my method, and because I'm doing this video, I'm just going to discuss the method that I use and how I know that I've got an edge on horse racing. So let's have a look at this graph here. This graph shows the relationship between win odds and place odds. So here's all the win odds from 1 to 2 up to 1,000 to 1. And the place odds, when we bet each way, are fixed at either 1 to 4 or 1 to 5 odds. The number of places that are paid is dependent on the number of runners in the race. If there are 4 runners or fewer, it will be win only. 5 to 7 runners, 2 places. 8 or more runners, 3 places, unless it's a 16 runner handicap or more, and then there will be 4 places. And bookmakers can add on additional places if they want to, but those are the standard terms. And on those standard races, the win price is the win price. The place price is either 1/4 or 1/5 the odds. And because it's fixed to the win price, there is a direct relationship between the two, as in this graph. Now, let's, for ease of analysis, have a look at just 1/4 odds. Now, the actual probability of the horse finishing second, third in the places is not a fixed linear relationship to the win odds. Some horses are win or bust. Some are, very likely to win, but if they don't win, they might not finish in the places. Other horses very likely to finish second but not win. I mean, imagine a fictional horse race where the favourite's 1 to 100, and then the second favourite is 100 to 1, and then every other horse is 10 billion to 1. Well, what do we know? We kind of know for sure who's finishing second in that race. So if we can get 1/4 or 1/5 odds on that horse, we're getting a crazy price for it to finish in those place positions. We're getting a long-term positive expectation price. And that's all the game is when you're looking at each way betting on horse racing. Have a look at this graph and you see that the orange line is the quarter odds we're getting paid for the place positions. But in reality, the fair odds of that happening is somewhere between the grey line and the yellow line. And if we can get paid anywhere in that orange hashed section, we are getting paid at odds that are greater than the probability of the event happening. Now, there's a little bit of game to play. We do have to overcome a slight loss on the win component. And if we can achieve that, then we know that we are betting on positive expectation horses in the long run. So I want to have a look at this dashboard to test whether I've got an edge on singles or not. The theory being, if I've got an edge on singles, I should have a higher edge on Lucky 15s. So let's have a look at Betfred. I'm just going to filter Betfred. The good thing about Betfred, by the way, it means I can go into the shops and place those exact same horses in shop. So if I'm restricted online, there are more opportunities. I'm going to have a look from the 1st of January 2019 to the 1st of June 2025. So sort of 5-6 years worth of data. I'm going to put in a staking methodology of unit win to win £200 on each bet. I think that's quite fair, £10 on a 20-to-1 horse. Now, just to start off with, I'm going to include all EV ranges. I just want to know that everything above 100% is in profit. If I filter those results, I have 23,646 different horses and 4.4% return on investment. That is profit of £31,000 if I was able to get on each and every one of those horses at 12 p.m. So I can see that I'm making some money. How about the last 12 months? Let's look just at June 2024 to June 2025. Filter those results. I now have 8,000 bets. It's a fairly low 2% return on investment for £6,000 profit. The key here is I haven't used any filters. I haven't filtered out any different odds ranges that I might prefer to. So this is all plus EV horses, the 100-to-1s, the 1-to-2s. And critically, I haven't filtered any EV here because a very good strategy is often to just bet on high EV horses, 105%, 110% or more, but I am including everything at 100% or more. So I know I'm in profit, albeit we can see the last 6 months, it's definitely been a bit of a choppy time. So if I'm in profit placing singles, shouldn't I be in profit placing lucky 15s? After all, I am compounding the value of these singles. So now that we've got our 8,800 singles, our plus EV singles, let's make some lucky 15s, shall we? That's what they tell us to do. Make the lucky 15s and the profits rain out of the profit clouds above us. So let's just construct a strategy for making our lucky 15s. First of all, I'm going to consider all odds ranges and all EV ranges over 100.0001% EV. Secondly, I can only consider horses in the same day, okay? Occasionally you might be able to bet on horses tomorrow, but it's not all the time. So we're just going to stick to lucky 15s with horses that run on the same race day. Thirdly, I'm going to rank my horses by value every single day. And I'm going to start at the top and just move down. And my last rule is I can't have two horses from the same race in a lucky 15. So actually what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a horse in a race and park that race. That race is done. Even if there's more value horses in that race, we're just going to take the top value horse in every race, put it in a lucky 15 and then park that race. And that's quite easy to do over the last year's worth of data. And when we do that, we find that we can construct 1,976 different lucky 15s. That's an average of about 5.5, 5.6 lucky 15s per day. And that's, reasonable in terms of the logistics of getting a volume of horse racing lucky 15s down in shops, definitely down online. So diving into this bet history, 25% of the time, the lucky 15 recorded a loss. We have 4 horses, and for each of the 4 horses, there are 3 possible results: a win, a place, or a loss. So 3 to the power of 4, 3 times 3 times 3 times 3 is 81. There are 81 possible permutations. 25% of the time, it was loss. 0% of the time, it was win. Only once in the 1,976 lucky 15s were there 3 wins in the slip. And a further 30% of the time, there was just a single place. So loss, place was 30% of the time. Loss was 25% of the time. So a whopping 55% of the time, a single place. A single place isn't going to return that much money. In fact, if you just get a single winner and nothing else on the lucky 15, that winner needs to be up at around about 25 to 1, depending on the place odds, to return a profit. Even then, you're really just break even. If you're just looking at the places, no winners, you're going to need 2 places, and those places are going to have to be up at 18 to 1 to even return marginal amounts of profit. So a single place, the vast majority of the time, is going to be quite chunky loss, and obviously the loss is going to be a chunky loss. That's happening 55% of the time. I guess the question is, how much would we expect it to happen? And the answer, unfortunately, is it depends on the magnitude of the odds that you're betting at, and it also depends on the average EV. And those are two things that you can control, and they have a tangible effect on the volatility of your bet history. But what we've shown here is that if you just took a blanket approach of every single horse over 100% EV and picked the top value horse in every race over a year with nearly 8,000 different horses, these Lucky 15s could still be minus 20% return on investment. And I think a lot of people get caught up by that because there's this misnomer that you simply take profitable bets, throw them in Lucky 15s, and hey presto, we make money. Lucky 15s are a little bit more of an advanced tactic for advantage players and for professional bettors that understand strategy, volatility, and variance. And my personal opinion is that they've been pushed to a lot of recreational bettors by people who themselves haven't done them historically, have heard on the grapevine that others, for example, the experienced bettors over at bookiebashing.net, have been doing Lucky 15s, and because they never did them themselves, they just go, oh yeah, take the horses, put them in the Lucky 15, collect the money, do the profit dance. And it's not quite that simple. The variance and the volatility is huge in Lucky 15s. You're taking those singles that have a quite lovely straight up PL graph over time, lovely flat smooth variance, and you're adding a significant degree of volatility to them. Even worse is if you have a community and you start cherry picking people's really good Lucky 15 wins and showing them off to everyone as marketing material, as if, come and join my community, look at this great Lucky 15 win. Yeah, brilliant. What about all the losses? In fact, you're generally going to be told, here's my big win. You're not going to be told, I've just got a year betting on 1,976 Lucky 15s and I'm minus 20% return on investment. And even if you were told that, you wouldn't pick it out and show it to people as marketing material. To me, this feels hugely irresponsible as you neglect to prepare people for the volatility that can exist in placing Lucky 15s. It would be much better for inexperienced players to start off with singles so that they can understand the variance that comes with horse racing. And once they can understand that, they can move on to Lucky 15s, or at least give them some education around expected volatility in large betting histories. Don't just pluck out a, oh my God, I made £3,212 on a Lucky 15 and wave it around like everyone could do that after a handful of Lucky 15s. So that's the volatility that can exist in a year's worth of Lucky 15s. But is there anything that we can do to improve our chances of returning a profit? Well, yes, there is something that you can do, and I'm going to give you 4 suggestions that you can take away to see if it can optimize your strategy for selecting horses to include in your Lucky 15s. And those suggestions are going to be 1, simply look longer, 2, EV, 3, odds, and 4, any concessions that you may want to include when placing your Lucky 15 bets. Now, the first one, you might not want to hear this, few people will, but you know that 1 year time frame that we were looking at Betfred with 1,976 horses? Look, at an average EV of 105% and average odds of 25 to 1, I hate to tell you this, that sample size wasn't big enough. That's 5 Lucky 15s a day, every day, for a year, 1,796 Lucky 15s isn't enough with that EV and with those odds ranges. So let's just stretch it out a little bit further. Let's go back to 2020 when we started collecting data. The same strategy of ranking all of the EV by day and taking 1 horse per race. Let's just go back to 2020 and see what the difference is in return on investment then. So here we go, here's our graph. Now you've got this long losing run in the last year that we can still see. In fact, it did go back a little bit further than 1 year, but there was actually a big winning run before then. And the overall ROI of this graph, which is 5 years long, is 0.25%. That is 5,761 Lucky 15s for a grand total of £429. Look, at least we haven't lost £12,000. That's a lot of work for £429 profit. But this is just step one, and I just wanted to show you that 1 year's worth of data unfortunately isn't enough. Then you're going to have to expect to wait half a decade, possibly more, to realize the potential of the EV of the bets that you're placing. That's just the reality of the game. And if you were led into this with false expectations on the kind of returns that you would get from these Lucky 15s, I find that particularly irresponsible from the service providers out there that aren't providing people with this information. So the first choice is look longer. Personally, I'm not really interested in 5 years worth of betting at Betfred for £429 profit. So the second option might seem obvious, but that is to be selective about the kind of EV that you bet at. You could have all horses over 100%, but those horses at 100.1, 101, 102% EV, they are really thin value. You could choose to have all horses over 105%, 110%. Now you may turn around to me and say, but that means that some days I can't bet. Correct. That's going to happen, right? You have to be disciplined. But if you put a filter in with 105% EV only horses, this happens to your 5-year graph. Now here we have almost half the amount of horses than betting over 100%, only 3,160 Lucky 15s compared to 5,761. But our ROI, our return on investment, has jumped from 0.25% to a whopping 23%. So now we've been betting for 5 years, we've made £22,000 profit. This is starting to look more attractive. This is only 1.7 Lucky 15s per day. So just imagine you pop out at lunchtime, you place between 1 or 2 Lucky 15s a day, every day for 5 years, just a £1 Lucky 15, and you have returned £22,000 profit. That is starting to seem more interesting to be. But you see that big spike up in May 2021. You might ask me, what's going on there? What if I missed that particular Lucky 15? Well, that wasn't even a win-win-win-win. That was just a win, place. It's just one of those horses happened to be 200 to 1. So when it placed, you got 40 to 1 on the place, and you've got a quadruple involving that 41. You start getting some pretty high returns. And if you're looking at that and thinking, but what if I missed that bet? Then my overall profile would be a lot worse. Yes, it would. It would be like half. It would be like 11 or 12% return on investment. But that's the point of what you're doing with Lucky 15s. You're trying to find that huge payday, that big spike, that lottery winning ticket. And if you'd rather not be reliant on those big spikes that happen once every half a decade or so, why are you placing the Lucky 15s? Just place singles. It's a lot less volatility, but at least we're now up at 23%. Are there any other things that we could look at? Well, not just EV, we can look at odds ranges. Now, you can play around with various databases to see what the difference is in return on investment for very high odds horses like 100 to 1, mid-range horses like 25 to 1 or 10 to 1. Here, I'm going to deliberately restrict all horses 10 to 1 and higher. And the reason for that is I'm trying to flatten the variance. I'd like my pool of horses to be low odds horses so that the places and the wins are more frequent and I don't have to wait so long between these big spikes. So now I'm going to use the 100% EV and over data set from the last 5 years, but I'm going to restrict the horses to 9 to 1 and under. And we see this graph. This graph is a lot less volatile, a lot less jumpy. We're not reliant on a single big win. We're flattening out our long-term variance profile in this graph. Now, we have only placed 1,356 Lucky 15s over the 5 years. That's less than one a day. That's about 4 every 5 days. And we've only won £2,360 profit for 5.8% return on investment. But I've achieved what I wanted. I'm no longer reliant on a single big win. I've flattened out my variance profile. Now, in this data set, the profile is completely different to what we looked at before. Only 7% of these are loss, 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 loss. Of course they are, because the average odds are lower. We even had a win-win-win-win, but at odds of 9 to 2, 11 to 10, 7 to 4, and 13 to 2, it only returned £665. Again, of course it did, because we are betting only at shorter odds. So the profile of our losses and places completely changes, and that's why we're seeing the variance flatten out on our graph. And this just goes to show how much these profiles can change if I just tinker around with the EV levels, the odds ranges. There is one more thing that I can do to improve the overall return on investment, and that is looking at concessions that are freely available online and in shops. The two main concessions that bookmakers offer on Lucky 15s are double or treble the odds if you only have a single winner in your Lucky 15, and a bonus, typically 10%, if you get all winners, a win, 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 win. So let's have a look at this double odds concession that a lot of the shop bookmakers do as well. Here's Betfred. They'll pay double the odds if you get one winner in your Lucky 15, one winner at 10 to 1, the other three horses don't win, they'll pay you at 20 to 1 for that horse. And those are Lucky 15s. Place a Lucky 31, they'll do treble the odds. Over at William Hill, they used to do treble the odds on Lucky 15s, now it's double odds. I went into Ladbrokes, some of them do apparently, some of them don't. It's area specific. Someone told me those Lucky 15s have like a bonus if you get one winner.
Just very regionally depending on competitions.
Fair enough, okay. So a lot of the shops do them, but what effect does the double the odds concession have on return on investment? Well, here's our old friend. This is all the Betfred bets from 2019 until 2025. We have 5,761 Lucky 15s here. And with no concession, we return 0.2% ROI for 429 profit. Add in the double odds concession and we now have £7,200 profit. That is a considerable jump. We've gone from 0.25% to 4.17%. But what if we had treble the odds? Well, now we jump to £13,973 profit at 8% return on investment. Now, this is just this one betting history. So I wanted to repeat this across a lot of different betting histories to see what the average effect was. So I did this at Bet365, Ladbrokes, William Hill, Betfred, and I used different strategies over 100% EV and 105% EV. And I made this table. And this shows that the treble the odds concession improved the return on investment of the Lucky 15s between 6 and 10%, an average of 8.6% improvement in the ROI. The double the odds concession was an improvement that was half of that. It was 4.3% return on investment. That's really good. That means that we could be taking 97% ROI Lucky 15s and adding on the 4% that we get from this concession, and we'll still have a profitable betting profile in the long run. And as a side note, if you're interested in what the biggest Lucky 15 winner was, well, it was at Bet365 on the 3rd of October 2024. If you logged on to the tracker at 12 p.m. and you took all of the horses ranked by EV and just the top horse of every single race, then you would have made the following Lucky 15. Damascus Steel, 16 to 1 at the 505 at Newcastle. High Point, 11 to 1 at the 420 in Salisbury. Preparations, 12 to 1 at the 445 at Bellewstown. And Damascus Steel, 16 to 1 at the 505 at Newcastle. And that was a win, 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 win. A £1 Lucky 15 returned £59,435.70 or £65,000 with a 10% all winners bonus on top. I wasn't on, I hope you were. So what are the pros and cons of Lucky 15s, Lucky 31s, these types of system bets? Well, we talked about the pros before. The first is logistics. We can go into shop, we can get on 4 Lucky 15s. Seems a little bit easier than getting on 16 individual each way singles. And on that subject, there are fewer restrictions. We know that when placing Lucky 15s, Lucky 31s, doubles, trebles, than there are with placing singles, because arbors place singles. We don't want to be lumped into a category with the arbitrage players. And thirdly, we compound the value by multiplying our equity by more equity. We create wine. We turn water into wine. It's always a good thing to do for profitable bettors and advantage players. And what are the cons? Well, we add in a lot of volatility into our betting profile. All of a sudden, we're betting at much higher odds than we would be with singles. And with that, we have to understand that we could go years betting 2, 3, 4 Lucky 15s every single day and not be in profit. That's what we have to accept if we switch over from singles to Lucky 15s, Lucky 31s. Look, we can do things to manage the volatility. We can understand the differences that will happen in time frames when we move from singles to Lucky 15s and 31s that we're going to have to wait longer to achieve our equity. We can optimize our betting strategy by looking at minimum EV levels and maximum odds levels, and we can look into bonuses because double and treble odds for a single winner really adds a lot of value to the Lucky 15s. One final option that we have is to include more than one plus EV horse per race, especially if the value's out there. We take the second horse, the third horse. We just need to construct more Lucky 15s on that day. Other than that, there is a question to ask yourself. Why are you placing Lucky 15s in the first place? Maybe singles would be better for you. The reason we're placing Lucky 15s is to compound the value and avoid restrictions. But at the cost of volatility, if you cannot handle the time frame that is involved in placing Lucky 15s over singles, maybe you should just be placing singles. Yes, that does come at the cost of maybe having restrictions a little bit faster. Longevity of opportunity is less, but at least we're not waiting 1,977 Lucky 15s only to find ourselves £12,000 down. Singles certainly are an option, especially to people that don't have the experience of variance and volatility in sports betting. It's actually quite hard to go in and start throwing Lucky 15s around at 10 to 1, 20 to 1, 30 to 1 and expect them to make money in the short term. But if you can handle that volatility, it is quite nice to have a plus EV lottery ticket. You never know when the jackpot is going to hit. A little bit like this Bookie Bashing member who took 5 horses off the Horse Racing Pro Tracker at William Hill, put them into a 50p Lucky 31, and when they went win, 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 he collected £441,913. And on that subject, I am off to William Hill now to see if lightning can strike twice. I'm here from a $500,000 from Ascot yesterday. Close? 0. I actually thought there might have been one place on there. No? Alright. Thanks anyway, man. No, I got that from Ascot yesterday. Just been reading up about some guy who turned a Lucky 31 into £400,000. So if you can tell me that's close to 400,000.
£38 and 3 pence.
Do you know what? I thought it was a lot worse than that. So I'll take £38 and 3 pence. Cheers. Next time, eh? All right. Anything on that, bud?
£4.65.
It's not exactly the millions, but it'll do.
465.
Yeah. I was reading that.
Are you just talking to yourself?